Helene,
Hello?
perfect.
Hello, Helene.
Hi, did I unmute okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
Robert, you might remember that Dawn or that. I replied to. So it's still in Oregon, right? It's not known quite yet.
No, the cellular guy's confused. He gave me a bunch of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, we signed it and I dug it up and sent him the signed copy again. I said, you did sign this. 'Cause our Tom signed it. We need to copy that dish signed.
Right.
I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay, just wondering, I wasn't sure if it was null and void or not, or.
So it's still good? You think? Under dish. Not Sprint.
But they bailed out, didn't they? Or which one bailed out?
That will Sprint thinks they bailed out, but they think because they already signed it over to Dish.
Right.
So Dish owns it.
Yeah.
There's
All that.
it's a hot mess going on with those companies right now.
Now they want to go backwards.
Undo it, undo it, yeah,
Oh,
undo it.
we just went through it.
Yeah.
Let me know, I still have all of that in there. So I haven't presented to you guys. On the spreadsheet.
If everyone can make sure their mics are on, that would be great.
My mic is on.
My mic is on. Steve, you good?
Yeah, well.
We got about 30 seconds here.
Drum roll, please. Can do a lot in 30 seconds.
Not stuck, is it?
It just happened to stick at that.
All right, there it goes. Okay.
Bingo.
All right, it's 3:30. So we'll call this meeting to order and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's Mig.
Oh, Nick,
Hey. Student body right.
just in time for a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do the roll call now. Clint Nelson here. Steve McKesson,
I'm here.
Helene Brazier,
Here?
Bob Marnett,
Here.
Mig Gaska,
Present.
Tracy Largent as the alternate.
Here.
Okay, hi Tracy. Okay. I want to take the liberty of, before we go any further, I just want to note for the record that Michael Ayers is here. He's a member of the public who was at the last board meeting and expressed interest in both this committee and I believe the Budget and Finance Committee, but primarily this committee. Is that correct? And so he is attending today to get a sense of what we do here. It would be nice if we did have a few more members of the public, particularly on the other committee, but
Maybe
little fresh blood on this
Another
one.
person who's
Fresh,
expressed
fresh
interest.
blood on this one be good too. So welcome to our meeting. And if you have any questions as we proceed, you are welcome to raise your hand, speak up. It's okay. Okay. Item number 4, instructions to allow public comment on agenda items from those attending this meeting via teleconference or video conference. If at any point anyone,
Do
would
we
like-
have anybody from the public? It's just staff and even Craig Balbin's not here? Oh, okay.
So he's told you have to read it then, huh?
No, he's got to come through here.
Okay.
YouTube's one way.
YouTube's just view.
I guess I always did that on item 7.
Well, I mean, if there's no, you can read all that if you want. It's just if there's nobody here to raise their hand. It's
Should we
just.
make a sound when it falls in the wood?
You're free to read it.
everybody okay for me to skip reading that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Any objections? Since there's no, okay. Item 5, seating of alternates. We have a full house, so all are here. So Tracy, we hope you stay, but we don't need to be seating you today. Item number 6. Additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda. As always, I will start with the staff and ask if the staff has any items that they would like to change, delete. Okay, committee members, any committee members have any items to delete or add to the
Beyond your
agenda?
weariness? No?
Huh?
Beyond your weariness?
Right.
Yeah.
What?
Page 7, first paragraph 17. Second sentence, last word, instead of on needed, as needed.
Oh,
That's
a good catch.
Fourth paragraph, add a 0 to 100,000 or to $100. Down below.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's for the minutes, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And I had one other, I can't find it right now, so I'll provide it afterwards.
Okay, so we do not have then any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda. We do not have any any written comment.
Public comment. We have public comment.
Right, we do. I forgot, Julie. Julie Johnson would like to address the committee.
He's got to get a microphone.
Well, I wanted to come just to thank you for all that this committee has done, starting first with allowing me to be a committee member, because I've learned so much from being here with phenomenal community members and staff at Rainbow Water. So I want to thank you for the opportunity. And now I'm in a new role. I'll be the secretary of the board. And I hope to continue to do my community part for the importance of this district. But I also want to thank all of you. You're the volunteers. You are the community. You are the voice that we depend on. And I want to thank you because I know this is a lot of hours that you come every month to participate. So I will not be serving on this committee any longer. So I wanted to first start today with public comment to thank you as committee members and the staff. And I shall miss you. Bye.
Great. Thank you, Julie.
You can visit anytime.
Yeah, you're not too far away.
Right. And I will just add that Julie was a very faithful and loyal member of this committee. And yes, she did show up without a great deal of background, but she got the bit in her teeth and she dug in and learned a lot and made a lot of contributions to this committee and also to the Budget and Finance Committee.
And
So,
communications and customer
Well,
service.
see, and I wasn't part of that, but there you go. So you were, Tom. And so thank you, Julie. Thank you. And all of that service has paid off with a job on the board now and expect you to do good. All right.
Let me know.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
All right, now we move to item number 8, approval of minutes. And I think, Mig, can we be sure that we got your comments correctly? I found the 100,000, okay, in the middle of the page.
Yep. Right up
The-
above it.
The second line of the first paragraph of that item 17, that says on needed as opposed to as needed.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And there was one more, but I can't find it. So-
Well, if you'd like to wait to approve these at the next meeting, you can, but once the
Yeah, I
committee
know.
approves them with your edits, that's
It,
it's done.
it was only really editorial
Typographical.
typographical, so I don't have any problem.
All right.
Okay. So Dawn, my question to you is, well, are there any other suggested changes to the minutes? Let's just start with that. Okay, Dawn, my question to you is, I sent in a written comment on the minutes, very small with an attempt at humor. And do I need to repeat that here in order for it to be as amended?
You
If we
should-
would do Mig's amendments. or-
Yes,
yeah.
you should repeat that here.
Okay,
Repeat it.
all right. So they're gonna have to endure it
It was
again.
weary for weary, right? I had,
That's right. The weary, wary thing.
Yeah.
So I just need to find it again now. Where is it?
It was in, yeah, on page 8.
Page
I believe
8.
it was.
The change has been made, but we should just note it for the record that's been made.
Oh, in these minutes, the change has already been made?
Yeah, it's at
No,
the third
no.
line of the top of page 8.
Yes, wary. The
It
third,
said
the
wary,
word,
not
the word, the word weary should be changed to wary.
Yeah, it wasn't changed for this
Right.
draft has been changed for the final, but we should note it for the record that it's been changed.
Weary to wary.
So unless somebody has an objection, I am hoping that we can get a motion to approve the minutes as amended in the two places noted by Meg and the one noted by me. Is that good?
I move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Pauline moves and Meg seconds that the minutes be approved as amended. I believe since we are not all here, we have to do a roll call. Is that right, Dawn?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Member Brazier,
Aye.
member Gasca,
Aye.
member Monette,
Aye.
member McKesson,
Aye.
and member Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Minutes are approved as amended. Thank you all very much. Okay, item number 9, general manager comment. Tom, that would be you.
Yeah, I've got another item to give an update on the detachment, and that will be more extensive based on what happened on Monday. But for us right now, we're preparing for the Water Authority's budget and rate increase hearing that'll be later this month, which will be disappointing, I'm sure, because I know I won't get my way, but I'm sure to make my annual or biannual request to line item out certain items, which will fail, but I'm going to do it anyway. I also plan to use some of the comments from another Water Authority board member who actually sits on LAFCO, his exact words in a different way, but repeat them back to him in the context of Water Authority rate increases as opposed to detachment. And that'll be fun to do. But it looks like the die is cast. The city of San Diego, who I think I reported this committee back as long as March when they were talking 14%. They said, we won't take anything over 10%. And that this was all a smokescreen to get it down to 10%. And then they're going to say, hey, look what we did. You know, we cut this way down. Well, they were on that path, but then the Water Authority forgot that SDG&E raises rates too. And the power consumption of the desal plant is so extensive that increased expenses considerably. And they haven't done a very good job of sourcing better power supplies. For one of the largest power draws in the county, they're just buying it from SDG&E, which is just bonkers to me. So the actual rate increase using the methodology that they've been using for the last 23 years or 19 years, I mean, it's 2004 to now, so 19 years, is around 13%. But they came up with a new thing that's called the effective rate, which is a different way of using creative denominator selection to change it to where now it's under 10%. And whether it's going to be 8.9 or 9.3, there are several options. I just got sent something earlier today with a couple of things laid out there. And so the city of San Diego will declare victory and say that they've got under 10% rate increase. But it's really not it's victory in new math. And they mathed 3% just to go away, which is disappointing. And I'll make sure to point that out. Now, I don't disagree that the all-in melded rate that they use is a poor analog, a poor device, but they've been using it the whole time for 20 years and the whole way through this process using the same calculation method. So you can compare apples to apples. And then when they realized they couldn't get that number to hit the number, they made a new math, a way to calculate. And it might be a better way to do it, but it's just kind of lousy when the city was, the basic numbers aren't changing. I have proposed, and they still haven't responded, that each year, when they're gonna do a rate increase, they take the total cost to each member agency. All right, last year, Rainbow, you sent us $29 million. We're going to change the rates. And if you use the same water you used last year, because that's only, you don't know what we're going to do next year, you're going to spend $32 million. And then it's 10% to you. And then do that for each member agency, because each member agency has a different mix, just like our customers. You know, they have different meter size, different customer class, different water consumption patterns. So the bill impact is different for everybody. And we'll be able to see who the winners and losers on the proposed change of the structure is. And it's not trying to put it down to the volumetric rate, the cost per acre foot, because we want to know how much money, because from a member agency, the cost per acre foot doesn't make a difference. I don't bill anybody an acre fee. The only agency around here that does is UWEMA. They're the only one who bills an acre fee because they have big farmers there. We have to then take their cost and meld it into our rates in a different way. And that's different for all 24 agencies. I'm going to push pretty hard to see if we can get that done going forward, because there's too much manipulation of the math to try to talk about it in dollars per acre foot. I think that we ought to take a look at, use your last calendar year demands, assume it's the same one, and here's how the new rate structure impacts the cost to each agency based on that, and call it a day.
Simple transparency.
Simple, transparent, and it's in dollars. That means that we need to, in that case I use, extract $2 or $3 million more out of our customers' pockets somehow to give to them. But it hasn't gained a lot of traction down there for some reason, because it's more difficult to manipulate it. And also at last month's board meeting, the finance manager was talking about their debt service coverage ratio. So whenever you have large amounts of debt, the bond rating agencies want to see that you've got revenues above a certain amount so you can make sure you can make your payments. And so they usually the ratio of 1.25 to 1.5. If you want to get AAA, you go higher. And a lot of the discussion on the rates was, how do we maintain our debt service coverage ratio? And that's, if we don't raise our rates enough, our debt service coverage ratio will drop and our bond ratings will go down. And then the cost to borrow, the ever more money they are borrowing, because they're constantly refunding debt. They use credit cards to pay off credit cards on a regular, which worked well when decline rates were going down. Now, not so much. And they're saying, yeah, they're targeting 1.5. The city of San Diego had asked, well, what happens if we go down lower? What is the monetary impact of that? And they never came up with an answer. But recently, Mayor Gloria did something pretty nice. And I don't usually give the guy kudos, but he appointed his chief financial officer, Matt Vespi, who's a guy I've known for a number of years. Sharp guy, knows numbers. During the meeting, and Matt sits in front of me. If you've been to the Water Authority, they have one long table in the middle, then a little riser, and people are on their outsides. And I'm on the outside, and he's on the table down below. And but he asked the finance manager. He says, "I know you're talking here about 1.5 coverage ratio, but I've been reviewing your annual financial reports for the last several years, and each year you report that we're at 1.8 and 1.9. What's going on here?" And she goes, "Oh, I can explain that." And I'm going to almost verbatim, but she says, "Oh, that's because we manipulate the numbers on the reports by playing with the denominator." In open session, she said this. If you want to view it, for everybody who's listening, go to the Water Authority website, find the recordings of the last month's board meeting. It's the ANF committee part 2 at 1 hour, roughly 5 minutes into that one. It was a 7.5, 8 hour meeting. It was brutal. And you can't hear on the audio me sitting behind Matt going, I'm like, what the? I said, I'm like, and he heard me. He couldn't believe it either. I talked to him afterwards. Everybody's just stunned. The Water Authority is really worried about detachment damaging their credit rating. I think that if the credit rating agencies heard the finance manager admit that they manipulate the information on their annual financial reports to show a higher debt service coverage ratio than actually exists, that should probably cause alarm in the investment community. And it's actually, I believe, the Securities Exchange Commission looks unfavorably about that. And they have nice gentlemen with nice silver bracelets that might come visit you if you're found to be doing that on purpose.
Sounds criminal.
Well, she may have just misspoke, but if you listen to it, she talked about using denominators to show that number. It's a different way they use the denominator. And it's like, okay, I couldn't believe she said it. So that might come up. That might come up in a few weeks at the Water Authority board meeting by some of us who are curious about, can you clarify what you meant by manipulate the numbers on your annual financial reports? So that's my fun for the day.
We can't leave fast enough.
Yeah. It's like I don't, it doesn't shock me, because this whole exercise on this rate study with coming up with a new effective rate as opposed to the rate system we use is manipulating the numbers to show something that has a different is different than what the actual facts are. So it's unfortunate, but that's the agency we're tied to right now.
Well, let's hope it's the NFL. Not for long.
Yeah. Well, and not the PGA.
Which is
The PGA and LIV golf.
Yeah.
We're-
Oh.
Go with the dark side.
Yeah. Um, does anybody have any comments on Tom's report?
After your jaws get picked
Yeah.
back up.
Okay. Helene, I'm going to always wait a few extra seconds because I remember at the last meeting
Well,
you
okay.
indicated that,
I just thought of something.
okay,
So with the member agencies that I'm sure you talked with afterwards, aside from the city manager, yeah,
Yeah, the
accounting
CFO,
guy,
the CFO for the city.
the
of San Diego.
CFO, yeah. What was their comments?
Everybody's just, well, most of the people, like, they couldn't believe she said it, but they believed that they did it. You know what I mean? Because they're like, cooking the books, there's been a lot of funny systems, I mean, I'll get into my report on number 16.
Okay.
They're liberal with the use of fanciful numbers to confuse the confusable.
Okay.
okay. All right, we're going to move on to item number 10. Engineering and CIP program manager comments. Chad?
Sure. So we brought to this committee, it's been a couple months now that we were monitoring the Morrow tank, which we're currently, Robert, it's half full, correct?
More a reservoir or a tank?
Tank.
Oh, tank. Yeah, we only run.
We operate it at half full.
Correct.
Because of suspected movement. So we've issued a task order to one of our geotech firms who set 2 inclinometers out there. And so I requested them to provide some data. They collected some soil samples to see what kind of soil is out there. And in their second reading, so it's been about 4 months, we've taken 2 readings. The tank is moving. It's about a little over an eighth of an inch in movement. And it's funny that they pointed out in a downward slope. I'm like, well, at least it's not moving uphill.
Well, yeah, that'd be kind of hard.
But,
Thanks for the clarification.
so we obviously are going to continue to monitor. This was set up as a 9 or a 12-month experiment, so we could collect at least 6 readings on it. But it's of concern that at reading number 2, it's already starting to show some movement. So we'll see how much it actually goes. We'll provide that back to some civil and structurals who's already weighed in on this matter. But oh my gosh, I think that was 2016 about.
Wow.
And go from there.
Is there a guesstimate of how many inches it can be allowed to move before you want to empty it?
So that's where we would go back to a structural engineer, and we have some reports from, I believe it was 2016.
Yeah,
that
they said
provided-
you could go half full.
Dudek report.
Dudek,
but, yeah.
But the solutions are difficult. Having to empty it and then do some
Ground
differential
injection and-
ground injection, or undermining and excavating and repouring in different stuff in different ways. It gets expensive and dumb. And so it's, we'll have to see.
And the tank was offline for many years,
Yeah.
but it does provide operational flexibility to have it online even at 50%.
In order to use as much water from the MWD connections, it has a function that allows us to use more met water. That's mainly why we have it.
Which division is it in?
One.
No, I think that's 2.
Is it? Oh, it's Hayden's. Yeah, that is 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Up there in Morrow Hills.
Moore Hills area.
And Chad, how did we notice it in the first place?
Visual inspection.
Really?
There was some, you can tell that there are, I'm drawing a blank on the name, when you're pouring concrete and you make the groove for the actual,
The felt,
Right.
the felt between them?
Yeah, in between the concrete ring and the asphalt.
the actual groove that's there, but then upon annual inspections, like that looks like it's getting bigger. And so all we could do was compare photos. It was really hard on a, camera lens to, is it getting bigger? So just gut feeling, suspicion of staff, let's go out there and let's actually set some equipment and see what it's doing.
No, it's been a challenge in the past there, and it's no issue. It's just how bad is it? And then what are the remedies?
And it could go to a spot and stop.
But is it soil related? Is it?
Yeah, it's cut into the side of a slope.
Okay.
Cut and
it's
fill.
a cut and
Yeah.
fill.
Oh, is
So
it
the-
So that's why we took some soil samples to see what kind of soil we're dealing with also.
And when you say soil samples, you bored?
We bored and took
Okay.
those samples and they're
To
being
what depth?
analyzed at the lab. That I don't have offhand. I
Okay.
can get that for you though.
Okay,
We're expecting a final report, but that's going to be several months out. I just wanted to
Yeah,
bring the committee an update
okay.
on where we are and
Well, thank you. The first thing that at least pops, Meg is right. First thing pops into my mind is in the event we did take some remedial action and based on potential costs, do we permanently fix the problem, or do we just keep sort of shoring and propping up? And that's something you guys will have
Yeah,
to think about and figure out.
there could be other operational strategies because we can operate the system without this tank. It's not that large. The zone it serves isn't that small. The tank is way oversized for what it's needed at this time of day. So there might be a different way to change the pipeline arrangements in that area to meet the flow needs to keep infill the Morrow going the way it needs to and serve that zone without a tank. It could even be as simple as changing the pump system to make it a closed loop zone with a bypass that opens up into the Morrow zone for fire flows. And it's a different type of pumping system. We have a system was designed to pump to tanks or singles. They're not VFD controlled. There's no, pressure control, but it's a small zone, could be put into a closed loop zone with an appropriate design pump station. So it really comes down to, it's a safety issue. It's not unsafe now. The engineers say we're fine, but if it just keeps sagging, we're gonna have to do something. If the cost to do one is $2 million and the cost to do another is 350 grand.
Is there redundancy to that tank?
Well, the
Yeah,
Morrow
or-
Reservoir is right
or-
next to it.
yeah.
So the Morrow Reservoir, it's one of the weirdest thing ever. You go to the huge
Yeah.
Morrow Reservoir and there's a
Yeah.
steel tank right next to it.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
what was going on here?
Right.
guys?
Yeah.
I mean, they're only 20-foot
Okay.
elevation
Got it.
hydraulically,
Okay.
so it can flow. But it's just,
Well, okay, so let me rephrase that. Does the steel tank provide redundancy or anything aside from or does it just service this one zone, if you will?
It just services that one.
That one
zone.
zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's the little appendage that goes north from the Morrow Reservoir up to what is it? Burma.
Yeah.
And that
Burma and Sleeping Indians.
Sleeping
Okay.
and like Olive Hill.
Yeah.
Road up at the very northern. We don't have a map of the system here, but it's that little appendage on our system that goes up into Fallbrook.
Having it in service allows us to get more water into more reservoir from the Met connections.
Right, because when that transmission main that would feed it is run at high speeds, the HCl drops, and so then the pressures drop in that zone. This allows us to maintain those pressures, but that could be managed in a different way.
Yep.
Or changing the pumps in the pump station and make it a closed loop system, call it a day. But those are things that we're just trying to evaluate here.
Yeah.
We got the information. Do you want to give them an update on the Bonsall Oaks thing that may go to June that won't come before this committee, the JUA?
Sure.
Which
Yeah,
we don't know, we didn't get the documents from him yet?
very late last night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so at the June board meeting, staff is working with the Bonsall Oaks Development to enter into a joint use agreement with Rainbow and SDG&E. So as the committee will recall, Bonsall Oaks is off of Gopher Canyon in Division 1, and we had 2 existing steel pipelines going through backcountry. Now it's going to be wine tasting, bed and breakfast, housing development. So instead of having the pipelines in people's yards under homes, we're relocating them into the streets. So we've done a lot of quick claims, granting of new easements. Well, Rainbow and SDG&E got into who's going to have the senior rights out there? And we were out there first. They don't even have facilities. And they were insistent on, no, it's SDG&E is going to be in there first, and you're going to ask us to work on your stuff.
No.
Exactly. Not going to happen. So we all sat down and very, very calmly said, well, how about a joint use agreement like we've done in some of the other subdivisions?
Right.
You don't have to ask us, and we don't have to ask you, and no one else can come in here. So that's what we're working on right now. Go ahead.
The challenge is the developer, wants to get this done because he's trying to line up his final approvals
Yes.
and he says, can we get this on the June agenda? We're like, well, you haven't sent us the documents. And so we're gonna do what we can. They're fairly standard, but normally something like that would come through this committee. But, my motto is to facilitate development, but don't give away the, farm. And these are pretty standard. So it's likely that if they can give it, and apparently last night they had, because they hadn't
Yep.
until. I didn't.
And we were fortunate. The engineering department, do not reinvent the wheel on this. We've done this in
Yeah.
other subdivisions. So find one of those board memos, curtail it unique to this one. We have
Yeah.
the draft template agreement that SDG&E legal's on. So then Tom will review it, Alfred will review it. And if all boxes get checked, which I'm confident they will, it'll be on the June board agenda. But yeah,
So,
this
Just
just
give you a heads
happened.
up that normally this is something we would have gotten earlier and it would have been on this agenda, just to.
Okay.
Let me just ask, you, Chad, there was a PUP and there was a pipeline project to relocate a pipeline toward the road from behind a whole bunch of people's property.
Mhm.
This is that pipe
No,
down.
that one I believe was on Camino del Rey.
Well, there's,
Oh,
there's,
that one down
there's
there.
Gopher Canyon, there's
That's-
Eagles Perch.
There's a line that runs
Right.
parallel to Gopher Canyon, but it's in the field behind the homes,
Mhm.
coming from a Turner, and it ties into the 12-inch.
Yeah.
This is a little farther west of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because as I recall, that project actually got delayed,
Yes.
environmental or something else.
That was the
And I-
main Gopher Canyon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
main
and I-
Gopher
and I
Canyon.
just was trying to remember, did we ever actually do that? So those,
Well, we done one element of that. The pipeline on Dentro.
And Nella.
right?
Nella.
We did Dentra,
Yes, I
Nella.
remember
But we-
Dentro.
That main
That
Gopher
was,
one,
that was another one of that little,
Mhm.
Right, in that those
One of the
fragmented
many.
sections.
Yeah.
I wish
yeah.
we would have done Gopher when we did it. That was like engineer's estimate 1.3. It's probably a 3 million. now.
all right, well, I engaged in misdirection. I apologize.
That's
I,
all right.
I just,
That's why we're here.
old guy, I gotta remember stuff. So, anything else, Chad?
No.
Okay. Item 11, operations manager comments.
Sir, I'll keep it short. Should only take about an hour. Because we're really busy in operations. Rice tank. So everybody's familiar with rice tank that sits on the hillside above Meadowwood and Citro. So we actually have activated the 3 PRVs that the Citro, well, as part of the rice tank 18-inch water line that we installed. We installed 3 PRVs down there. We've activated those. We've shut off other valves in the area. Long story short, we're feeding Meadowwood and Citro from rice tank now,
And connection 10.
which is significant because connection 10 is metropolitan water. Before we were feeding that whole side of the freeway from Palamesa tank.
Mhm.
Okay, so a little bit of a shift. We took the demand off of Palamesa. Now, the demand that we took off of Palamesa can now go towards Morrow to help inflow Morrow at a faster rate. So good for that.
It also provides us redundancy in the event of shutdowns of the pipeline, because they rarely shut down both sides at once. But we didn't have a very good way to move water from connection 10 into the main part of this region.
Correct.
And during those shutdowns, now when this pipeline is down, we can bring water over that could serve all the way to here.
Pretty much. So it's worked out perfect as we planned. Next week on North River Road, we're going to be conducting warranty inspection of the 15-inch clay pipe from Highway 76 to Stallion on North River Road. That's a which road? North River and Stallion.
Where we did the lining and the manhole.
Where we
Right, I
lined
remember
it.
that. I
So,
just trying to remember I drive that all the time, so.
so it's been a couple years now. We need to get in there, clean it, and then run a camera through there and inspect that lining. It's a joint project with the company that installed the liner, so they're gonna foot the bill for the cleaning and the TVing of the pipe. We've got to do some internal operations to hold flow. So basically our last lift station, we're gonna shut it off and hold flows as long as we can so they can go in and do what they gotta do.
Be easier if Thoroughbred was up and
It
running.
would be really easy. So it's gonna start around 3 o'clock in the morning and we're bringing guys in. So their normal shift is 6:30 to 4. We're changing their shift to go from 3 a.m. to 11:30. So it's no overtime for them. It's just a change in shift. We have to give them 24 hours notice. We're giving them days notice. The email went out this afternoon. So just in case you're driving around there and you see what we're doing, we're cleaning and TV and line. Make sure what we paid for is what got installed.
And that was we negotiated that via change order at the end of the project to do an extended warranty on this, and that they would help offset the cost. So
Yeah.
it's a good deal.
So are you done with that one?
Yes.
Okay, I want to do a go back.
Go
So
back.
the flip of feeding that side and freeing Pala Mesa to go to Morrow
Mhm.
is because of use of Met connection?
Yeah, connection 10 is up off.
Yeah.
Rice Canyon, Palo Temecula.
Okay.
Well, it's in between Palo Temecula and Rice Canyon. Road.
And so how much of a decrease of water purchase off of county water authority lines?
None. So
None?
what,
This
no,
point.
Okay,
No, I think what
that's
it
what I'm
does-
trying to.
So what
that's-
happens
I
is-
think I got lost. I didn't hear that.
I wouldn't say none.
It
What it
reduces
does,
our transportation costs, isn't it? what
right,
it does?
but what it
Yeah,
does,
That's where I'm
Yeah.
going.
there's a limitation right now on connections eight
correct.
and 9, but 8 primarily, and
Mostly
how much
8.
water it can shove down to Morrow and then get into the southern zone.
Yeah.
And but 8 has to serve the Palo Mesa zone,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And so we limit some number of, say, we got 20 CFS coming up, 1 or 2 have to come over to feed this one.
Correct.
Now we can bring that 1 or 2 for number 10, and that 1 or 2 can go that way. So an extra maybe 1,000 gallons a minute are going the other direction, which then allows us to move more met water and have to take less off our certificate. So it's not a direct 1-for-1 because it's all using that, but it will help us meet those goals
yeah.
and get.
It, we'll see better numbers when we start sending more water south, once the pump stations are built.
Right.
That's when we'll really see it.
Right.
Yeah,
It'll
yeah,
really come in handy then.
yeah, but I guess I'm interested in what's the average cost savings.
Oh, it's $193 an acre foot right now.
Okay,
So that is, it was definitely part of the strategy.
yeah,
We wanted it for many reasons. Well, people that were here before me should have negotiated it into the deals with all those developers to have them pay for it originally.
yeah,
And they did help us pay for part of that whole project with Citro, but that was part of the deal we did with Citro that they helped build it. And it was expensive pipeline, but it's a critical link in our system to be able to connect it east-west.
Right.
In that area. And the rice tank itself was dead end tank over there, and it was always had trouble with water quality. They barely ran any water in it. You couldn't store much
5
water in it.
feet usually.
Yeah,
all we
because
kept in there.
it was not a useful storage mechanism because there wasn't enough demand in that zone. Now that thing can be, we can move, we arrange it so that water comes in and has a different mixing, not a mixer, but a way that it circulates the tank and then goes out a different pipeline so that it can feed back down the other way, and will be a much more useful for not only diurnal storage, but
that's a transfer station.
it's just
Yeah.
a storage reservoir
Yeah.
to take your peak demands off.
Got it.
And but it allows us to maximize our number 10 connection.
Got it.
All right. Rainbow Glen, we had a main break this past weekend on 12-inch water line. We took care of that on Sunday. No real big deal. It's a 1-valve shutdown. We just finished installing a PRV station, another EFI shelter out at Via Mariposa. That is now active, so that's been a work in progress for a few months. We still have 4
Did the
EFI
new valves
shelters.
go in there as well?
Yes, we got all the new valves in there several months ago. We still have 4 EFI shelters down below. These are pressure reducing stations that are prepackaged that we need to get installed. So we'll be working on those this year. Palamesa site, the contractor was out there last week and is finishing up with the mowing and weed abatement on that site.
Saw it. Looks good.
Also, we activated the heli hydrant, so it's actually full right now. We've had 2 fires in the last 30 days. We just had one this week at Gerd and Montserrat. We think it looks like they were trying to do some weed abatement and started a little fire, 1/4 acre, nothing big, but it got the full response. Smoke was blowing from via Montserrat, or right down the street from you, and over into Gerd Valley. They did not use the heli hydrant. They called the air off when they were en route. So then we had another one between Gerd and Wilt down in the canyon down there. Same thing. They were doing chopping weeds down there. Weed whacker started that fire. Thought they were going to use a heli hydrant on that. Same thing. They got there, got it out in time, called off air assets. So it's already starting. The shenanigans are already starting for us. And then lastly, and this just happened today, I met with North County Fire up at the Palamesa site. They're looking for a location to do some rope rescue training. And they're doing it for, what do they call it? For the north zone, which would be probably 10 different fire agencies. So we walked around up there and they want to use some of the dirt slope. So they're gentle slopes, and they were talking about a lot of stuff. I don't know what they're saying, but they like the site. So great. We'll unlock the gates and let them practice up there. And other firefighters can see the heli hydrant and know where it's located. So it might be a win-win for everybody.
That's with North County.
North County Fire. That's probably not going to happen until September, and then we'll get the heads up on what day they're going to be out there and whatnot. We don't need to provide any type of support or anything like that.
Do we have any liability if they get hurt during their games?
No, I don't. That's a really good question.
Maybe talk to Carlene and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
Aqua JPI have a standard waiver for.
yeah,
because we cross train with the fire department, right? So we cross train with them on trench rescue and confined space. So that's a really good question. I'll talk to Carlene and see.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Nothing really damaged. They got a bunch of trucks
No,
No.
no. No, not at all.
Yeah, that was.
That's a good
pretty
point.
robust.
Generally speaking, I mean, they're firefighters, so. We'll see. That's it.
Going back to the two little spot fires. I'm trying to visualize. GERD, you said GERD and wilt. I don't.
It'd be,
visualize- I don't-
between GERD and Wilt,
Okay,
down in
go ahead.
Canyon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
there's a,
Yep.
you know, from Wilt, there's a ridge that
Yep,
drops
right.
back over.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's another little bit of a ridge, that's the Gerd Valley.
that I get. I
Yeah.
thought I heard him say GERD and wilt and I was
Yeah.
not,
Having
Yeah,
I
cognitive.
was not having a.
dissonance.
Okay,
What do they mean?
okay, any questions for Robert? Thank you, Robert. Item 12, committee member comments. Pauline, you are off site, so why don't we start with you? Do you have any committee member comments?
I do, and I will try to be as brief as I can. I'm mostly just passing on a ratepayer comment and a bunch of questions. I will not itemize the questions he asked, but they all apply to our emergency supply of water, why we don't have one, and why we pay for one. And a lot of the questions he thought he would have answered by now, but he doesn't. So the bottom line is this person was saying that now that there's talk of detachment, he and neighbors are talking, and they realize they don't understand that at all. And I think that's something that needs to be emphasized, because if he and his neighbors don't understand, I'm sure there are a lot more ratepayers who do not understand that. And it's going to come up again.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, provide the name to
Yeah, let
the
us know.
staff
We
so
can-
they can talk to him and help provide information.
I would, but he wouldn't even give me his name. I know who he is, but he wouldn't tell me his name.
well, you know, we do everything.
He was hoping that the public meetings would answer a lot of his questions, but they haven't.
All right, well, that's unfortunate. Well, if they want to get a hold of us, we'd be happy to talk to them and, but you know, if we don't know who they
I
are.
think that's the best we can do.
Well, and make reference to all the many articles that have been published in the newspaper, and
Yeah.
television, and the communication that goes out in our
Newsletters,
bills that we receive.
Yeah, the
and-
newsletters.
Mhm.
Well, he said a lot of the things were not clear why the district did or did not do what it did or did not do. So I'll leave it at that. I'm just passing on information.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much. Anything else, Helene?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Nothing.
Robert,
Nothing for
Steve,
me, no.
Meg. Anything
I
else?
was at the Monday meeting, but if he's
Yeah,
gonna
we'll do
talk,
report.
we'll
And,
we'll
he
do the
can chip
report.
in, yeah.
Okay, I don't have anything either. Moving on to item 13, board action updates, for the benefit of Michael. When we make recommendations to the board, we don't like for them to just disappear. So that's why when this committee recommends that the board pass an item, not pass an item, we like to hear at the next meeting of this committee, what did the board do with the action that we recommended? So Chad usually gives us a quick by the numbers of whether they accepted our recommendations or not.
The board accepted all recommendations. The board approved the following items. There were 3 agreements for on-call CM and inspection services. Staff is currently working with each of those consulting firms to execute the agreements. Tom's hand is going to be sore here in a little while signing. 2 agreements for on-call environmental services. And so at the end of the committee agenda packet, you'll see the on-call as needed spreadsheet.
Expenditures report.
Yep, and so that's where these are. And then the notice of completion for the Sumac Communication Tower and PV and backup battery system project NOC was accepted by the board as well.
All right, thank you. Meters update, Robert.
So a few meetings ago, we spoke about some of the meters that we have to replace that are underperforming. And just to recap on that, meetings we had with Neptune, there was a decoupling effect with some of these meters that nobody had anticipated as the water was ran through them at a rather quick pace. We
Yeah,
bench-
like triple the AWA maximum
Yeah.
flow rate.
we
with
bench
spec-
tested a bunch of meters, validated that. We bench tested new meters from different varieties and we deployed meters out in the field. We placed orders for new what's called e-coders, which we found to be more effective than the pro coders, which are currently installed on the Neptunes. But there was a delay in getting those, and that delay is this August. They're supposed to be in.
Issues are.
So we reached out to a different manufacturer. They're able to get us a couple meters. Long story short, we've got 72 meters out of the roughly 500 that we've changed out already. We have 70 meters in the warehouse right now that we'll start installing. So that'll get our numbers up a little bit more. And then once the rest of everything comes in August, it'll be a turn and burn on those. A good example that we just pulled several days ago, we had a customer who at this point is at, let me see here. What is he at? 3,000 units he's used in May on a 1-inch meter.
3,000 units
3,000
And the meter
Wow.
that was reading like 5.
in
in
the
one billing period.
in one billing period. So
Yeah.
Did he recently plant?
no, he's feeding a grove through a 1-inch meter. So this is one of the meters. We went through 3 different Neptune meters and we put finally got this guy in there, and this meter's keeping up. We just got a video of it. It's great.
But we're gonna have to go back and put a larger meter in this thing.
Something, because this
That's one of
meter,
the challenges.
when you do the math, he's like, and he has a well, so it's a weird when you look at his billing history. He's on the well for 2 months and then on the meter for 1 month, and he fluctuates like that. But even at that rate, in less than 6 months,
Yeah,
he's
it's-
burning up the meter. The meter's junk
Right.
at that point, right? So
But it's, well, that's one of the reasons these meters, the AWW standard that is set for all meter sizes has a certain minimum, maximum, they need to be accurate. And the meters we bought were dead nuts on that.
Yeah, right.
But when we told the people in Alabama, we had a meeting with them and the Neptune factory, they're like, they're using how many units?
they didn't believe us.
They're like, no.
They didn't
Like-
believe us.
Okay, so,
So this will
He's-
reduce our water loss.
yeah, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's burning up meters.
Yeah.
And he's buying the new ones when he burns them up?
No, that's one thing that we've been wrestling with. And I know Flint, we've had many discussions on this. In our administrative code, we don't have any provision for how to compel someone to go up. That's why we were trying to find a rate structure that would handle it for us.
Well, I'm, if they get charged, if they burn up meters and we got to put in the time, buy new meter and install it, then
we would
if
have,
they're abusing that equipment
it is,
and
yeah.
they need to replace it.
I don't dispute that, but in our administrative code, there aren't clear
And Mick,
legal.
Mick, can I just be the devil? I completely agree with you. I'm just gonna be the devil's advocate, okay? We are the water district. We are the expert in meters and flows.
Right.
He is just a customer.
Right.
So why didn't we know when we decided either to change the meters the first time or another time or in the past because he was burning them up? Why did we not say, whoa, timeout, too much volume, need to have a bigger meter, so that would be, if I was on the other side, that would be what I would be arguing is,
This is the flip side of the whole meter downsize issue.
Yeah.
Because people say, oh, I'm not going to use much water, but we have lots of people who are frightened water through these smaller meters. So that's why we're very cautious at staff level to downsize anybody. And then we have caveats in a deal with them. Somebody who got a meter installed in 1978 or something and said, I need a 1-inch meter. People just give them 1-inch meter. And, that was it. Now that person owns that capacity. If we're now we changed our rate structure so that now we don't have meter size, we have capacity classes, and the district reserves the right to go put a larger meter in it without giving them additional capacity rights. But that is not on the charge of the customer. And as with these ones go through, we will get to those. The e-coder meters and the Badgers are more tolerant of them than the Neptune Pro coders. For whatever reason, it's just the way the gears work in that thing, they just can't handle it. And it's an oversight, I guess, on our part, not to overrun these meters to see how they did
Right.
it, but
back to Mick's point, I think Mick is absolutely right that whether it comes from this committee or the finance committee or just directly by the board, something ought to be done to get things squared up, right? To get pipe size, meter size, hooked up with flow rate.
But I guess one of the a follow-on question would be, so how many meters did they burn up in how much time? Did they burn 3 meters up in 1.5
Robert,
years or?
Well, there are people who do that. The Paramount uses it with the Poikerts, but we put a larger meter on there.
Because I mean, to me, it's simple math. The cost for all the manpower and the cost, and it's probably a penalty cost for having to install a meter within 6 months is going to be X dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And you burn up 3 meters, you're going to wish you had bought or an upsize your meter.
Right.
That
Right.
it's that
And
simple.
Mick, when we put a bigger meter in, all the back piping behind that meter going to the distribution
Right.
on that property.
Yeah.
Has got to be enlarged to
Right.
size up.
It's
with
it's a
the
big
meter.
project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's been 3 meters since June of 2019. Right now, if we bought a brand new meter, they're $304.50.
Plus labor and. all
Plus-
that.
Plus,
labor.
yeah.
Robert,
Labor's pretty
in
quick.
this case, we wouldn't go size for size. We would put a bushing,
We have.
install a
yeah,
larger
but-
one.
yeah,
Well, the thing about
Well-
this whole pushing for it to go up, you've got to,
You
there's
got
different
pushing
ways.
to
Yeah.
go
You-
down, but you can't
yeah.
go up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a different process. So,
The physics make your flow rate go crazy, right? I mean, well, go plummet.
well, I mean, that's on their end. So I'll get with Alfred, but I've talked to Alfred about this before. It's a difficult thing. And on the basics of it, from a common law, that at some point a customer came to us and struck a bargain for some fee to install a meter of a certain size. We don't have in our administrative code how much water you can use. And we don't set a maximum flow rate, you
Right.
know, but maybe we should, or can we? And then what is the legal ramification of that if we start billing people? And then how do we do it legally without getting sued? So I'll get with Alfred. We have talked to him about it before. It's a difficult one. We worked for a long time on a rate structure that would change your monthly fixed charge based on volumetric stuff. And we had something that mathematically could work, but the rate consultants and the legal beagles said, yes.
The extremes are crazy though.
Well, no, we found a way to mitigate even that, but then they say now you're getting arbitrary and now you're going to get a 218 suit. The Prop 218 handcuffs that we have in our rate systems are terrible. We might be able to I'll talk to Alfred and find a way to make a finding that they are abusing the system or something.
right.
But you know what? I want them to buy 3,000 units of water a month because that's
Yeah, but we don't want to burn up a meter a month.
yeah, I know.
either. mean,
Well, what we need to do is, Robert, as we
Well,
have these
yeah.
instances, they did it with a,
If-
we go out and install an 1.5 meter on our dime and just call it good.
If
This
we're-
person's spending 10 grand a month.
If we're replacing meters and they're not getting charged, then
It's a double.
they're
check.
taking advantage of the rest of the ratepayers, and that's got to stop.
Exactly. The rest of the ratepayers are paying for their misuse.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Exactly.
I'll give you an example. In 1993, I think it was, there was a dye house in Vernon called Tishurama that ran 24/7, 365, used 1 million gallons of water a day, a textile dye mill. And we had an 8-inch meter that I would have to, I took over the water system at that time and I noticed that their bill would go up and then it would drop right off because the meter was fragging out. And I'd tell the guys, I'm like, hey, we got to fix this. Like, yeah, we got to wait till they have a shutdown. Otherwise they charge us to shut down the factory. And I said, when do they shut down? They said twice a year. It was Christmas and the 4th of July or something. And so I said, all right, well, if that's the case, we're going to build a second meter. And we built a full 8-inch meter service assembly, which is a big thing. And that next Christmas, I put a T in that damn thing and put a second meter in. And we never had to do a shutdown again and change out the meter. And
just kept
that
on
was it.
flipping it
But
back
then we were losing $40,000 every time he broke a meter. But then it took a while to get the next one in. And so those are things that compelling them to do it gets difficult. And the lawyers tend to hem and haw. So let me work on that and then we'll bring something back to the committee with some options. It's a vexing problem. I was hoping to do it through a rate structure where, hey, that's a rate structure.
You know, though, just for part of your conversation with Alfred, if this is $1,000 caper, replace a meter,
Just to swap water, you know. Oh, that's-
Hello?
if this is
Can you go on mute, Helene, please?
Just leave it inside the garage? Thank you.
I'm thinking legal here. If this is just say it's $1,000 caper on average,
Right.
every time this happens.
Yeah, lost revenue and
And
cost to replace.
if we went ahead and charged the customer for that, and the board passed some language that said yes, the value of that incident is probably so low that from a ratepayer perspective, trying to hire a lawyer to back out a $1,000 charge.
Well, if you look at 3,000 units at $5 a unit. $15,000 because they're skating on.
Yeah,
That's the loss.
That's different math then. right?
Yeah.
Well, then it makes a lot
Simple
of
math.
sense to upsize
Upside.
on our own coin.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I've
to
done.
Whatever will easily handle that 3,000
Right.
and
And
not.
so now we've got a Badger in there. The Neptunes can't handle it. The Pro Coders, the E-Coders can. We've tested the E-Coders on the bench here. They spin up like mad. But the problem is you've got the 1-inch pipe and then we got to knuckle it up to a 1.5 and it's a whole different assembly. And you're digging in somebody's front yard and all that stuff. What our goal here after we finish this up and we notice this issue is as quickly as possible, get meters in that will start registering. And then go back and find the particular offenders like the one Robert highlighted and identify a more permanent solution, whether that could be compelling them to do it or just making sure we get the dang money because the non-revenue water loss to us was significant. You know, it was a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And it's in our interest to not do that anymore. The fastest way may not be going through the lawyers. And I think in the long run, we should develop some sort of policy, find out what could work legally. We have a gentleman who is a lawyer here who may be on the committee who might be able to guide us in these matters. I'm not sure what your specialty of law is, but it's
You can develop a new one.
well, if you ask what most lawyers, they'll say, well, it depends, right? You know, is this
Yeah.
legal? It depends, you know, and so there's it's everything's fact specific and situation specific, but it also gets the Byzantine rules around water rate setting are ridiculous. So, but I think that's, you know, definitely something that's on the list. We just want to report back that the process is underway, that we are seeing the results we had expected to see, and that, you know, these guys who were freighting through meters and burning up the Neptunes, this one, we expect it to last much longer. Will it last forever? No.
Right.
But we got to get through this summer because we don't want to miss all the demand this summer.
Right.
How long will it take to get all the meters installed that you need to get?
The bulk of them aren't gonna arrive until August. Once they get here, it'll be an all hands affair to get them installed.
Dropped in, yeah. It's
So-
crazy that they're just not available anywhere.
Yeah. So the 70 warehouse, they're all slated to go to the highest priority.
Correct. So we have a list of over 500 meters that we identified with IT and the meter staff and that need to be replaced of varying sizes. But we have the 1-inchers right now in the warehouse.
What's the estimated income recovery of getting?
Over $1 million once we get it all done a year.
Sounds good.
So it's a process. We'll get through it. But you know, back to what Tom was saying, the main goal was just to capture the water that we were losing. And
Revenue we were losing.
before that, we didn't know how much water we were losing. You know, you're getting a 0 read or you're getting false low reads. So we weren't able to tell like this person how much water they're actually using. So now that we know, now we can work on addressing the upsize of the meter, whatever actions we need to take to correct that. But at least we're capturing that water and that revenue. Well, we're capturing the water right now. We'll see what happens when they get the
Got to
bill.
stop the bleeding and then we'll work on the
Yeah,
final cure.
Exactly.
Anything else on this item? Thank you, Robert. Item 15, this is an item that the staff is asking for the committee to take an action. Item 15, the NOC Fairview Development. Notice of completion.
Right.
Who's going to do that? Chad, go.
Thank you. Yes, so the staff is asking this committee to make a recommendation to the board at their June board meeting to approve this NOC. This is in Division 1. It's a spinoff of DR Horton. 4-Star USA Real Estate Group is who actually constructed it. It's complete. All water and sewer facilities have been installed and accepted by the inspector, signed off. It comprised of 73 condominiums that are now in there.
Detached condominium.
Detached condominiums, like the 0 lot lines and all that stuff. So anyhow, we're, you know, in your packet, you have the draft action letter there, which I believe it's consent. If Don will let me know if we have enough consent calendar items. She's giving me the thumbs up. So
What division?
One.
Division 1.
It's
Yes.
on West
Yeah,
Lilac.
the
over there.
Lilac, okay.
And $1.22 million worth of assets will be
Yeah.
added to the bottom line of the district.
Valuation. Yep.
And then this also sets the time for the 1-year warranty period
Yes.
for those pipelines. So if they fail in the first year, they gotta fix them. And also, we release some bonds, don't we?
We do.
Any questions from the committee? To me, this looks pretty straightforward. If not, I'm looking for a motion. The staff is suggesting that we recommend option 1 to the board. And you can see what those are, except the improvements as complete, as shown on the approved plan, approved filing the notice of completion, adding the installation cost of 1.2 million to the balance sheet, which I know Tracy can do in a heartbeat, make a finding that the action is not a environmentally sensitive item. So anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move.
I move we approve option 1 to recommend it to the district.
Okay, second.
All second.
Okay, Helene moves and Steve seconds. And I guess, Dawn, once again, we need to do a roll call. Thank you.
Member Brazier,
Aye.
Member Gasca,
Aye.
Member Marnett,
Aye.
Member McKesson,
Aye.
and Member Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Um,
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to the next item, I'd like to apologize for the noise a few minutes ago. My gate buzzer rang and I had to buzz a delivery person in, so I apologize.
Thank you, Helene. Thank you. We accept. Hope it was a good, hope it was a good delivery. Okay. Item 16, detachment update. Tom, I guess you're going to give us that?
Yeah, and Mig was there, so he can chip
Oh,
in here.
good.
As you all know, June 5th was a big day for our detachment effort. It was the hearing at LAFCO. It was a long day. Yeah, as I think I reported here before, we had asked the chair to move the start time from 8:30 a.m. to somewhere later to allow more people to get down there. They didn't. And actually, I ended up getting up even earlier because KUSI did 3 live spots on air before it. I was there at 6, 6:30 and 7 a.m. Downtown. So I got it pretty early that day. But it was a long day, you know, and I guess the first thing I would say is that while I have complained and groaned sometimes about the pace at which the LAFCO staff has handled this and the frustrations we've had in trying to get this thing over the finish line, you know, they did a really, really great job presenting the information to the commission. They spent about an hour. Dr. Hanneman got up there and said a bunch of stuff, but and he's always difficult to listen to, but the staff was really solid in their analysis and they presented it clearly. It's a very complicated matter, but they walked it through, I mean, very clearly.
Yeah,
you know?
they separated the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
And they spent about an
It
hour, a
was
little over
all-
an hour doing
All grain.
right.
Yeah.
One thing that Dr. Hanneman did say during his comments or after the question from the commission about the Water Authority's governance model is he said very clearly their governance model is broken. The way they do things down there is broken.
Yeah.
And we think that LAFCO should look at that because it is broken because the city of San Diego rules the roost and it's a survivor, you know, battle to where the winner gets all. And it's not going to work well for them going forward. And so hopefully LAFCO will take a look at that in future reviews of the Water Authority.
Tom, sorry. That's a little scary to me.
Why? Oh, it is scary. That's why we
Yeah.
went out.
No, I think where I'm going with this is, you know, one of the options is that we delay and do this governance, this overhaul of
Municipal service.
the water.
we do.
Authority. And so this just really feeds that beast, doesn't it? I mean, that kind of scared me when you said that. That's all.
Yeah, you know, when Dr. Hanneman did his report, he was asked to look at 3 things, but he wrote a whole chapter on how screwed up the Water Authority and Met as a similar situation, how their governance models are, that it incentivizes the wrong decisions and that it's not going to work well going forward. And I agree with that.
Mhm.
And but you know, we're sitting there with our 3.9% of the vote, the Water Authority is screaming into the wind, man. So we don't get anywhere. So after LAFCO staff gave their presentation, Jack and we had 30 minutes and we nailed it within about 10 seconds to go through our slides. We practiced in this room last Friday for a couple hours to make sure we could dial it in to get our points across. Then the Water Authority went on, and that's why I'm disappointed Craig Baldwin didn't come, because they brought everybody. They had two special counsels there. They had their general counsel there, their general manager, both their deputy general managers. They had some staff members, director of water resources, all these people. And they had, and the chair and vice chair. So I think there was like 10 or 12 people there from the Water Authority, and 3 of them spoke. And since you're all familiar, well, you've never seen his face or whatnot. Craig Baldwin, who's attended many of our meetings over the years, he was there. Craig's role was to operate the clicker for the PowerPoint slides, because they came up to us and said, here's a clicker. Yeah, Jack and we can do it. The LAFCO staff, everybody can use, has a thumb, they can do it. No, Water Authority gets up there and they have Craig sitting behind him, clicking through the slide. The next slide, please. And he's standing right behind him. It was the weirdest thing ever that you would pay a staff member. You're probably, I don't know how much the guy makes, but he's wearing a suit. So he's making more than 100 grand a year to come down. Your sole role is to operate the clicker for slides. Very strange. Maybe they would just be too distracting from the nonsense they were saying to actually focus on using your thumb while you're speaking. But in our good fortune was that Mark Haddam, who's their bombastic litigator of an attorney, was the one who gave the legal side of it, as opposed to their new general counsel, who's much more smooth and personable. Mark Haddam is not personable whatsoever, and said all kinds of nonsense. I will say for the record here that there were a number of misstatements of facts made by the Water Authority. One of the most egregious ones that has been disproven repeatedly is that this is a slippery slope. Other people are going to do this, and they're pointing at Valley Center, even though Valley Center has written multiple letters from their board chair, from the general manager, from their board taking action on it. It says, no, we've looked at it. It's way too expensive for us to build a pipeline all the way from basically northern Escondido to up here. And it would never pass CEQA alternatives analysis, right? And so, and they know it's not true. They know for a fact it is not true. And yet they repeat the lie. And then another thing that she said was that if we were in Eastern, we would have been subject to the state water project only area cutbacks that Met had. Last year, when the state project water flows were low, there were certain portions of Met's service area, primarily up in the northern part, Callegas and that area, that only have access to state project water sources, no Colorado River water, that had to go on some pretty significant haircuts on water demand. And that's true, but it didn't affect the Skinner service area or the most of the Met service area, which isn't in that situation. But she got up there and said that we would have been subject to that. And she knows that's not true. Sandy, I know you know it's not true. But went up there and told the commission this anyway, which was disappointing. I did get the zinger of the day, and I forgot to say my zinger of the day, because after the staff had been talking for about an hour, and I said, Jack went first. I said, I know we're going to have lunch later, but the spaghetti factory called and said they're out of spaghetti because the Water Authority threw it all against the wall. Boom. A lady from NBC News came up to me and says, thanks for that one, because this meeting was getting dull. But
one of the things that I heard that I thought was really interesting was the Water Authority said that we hadn't taken any state project water in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's completely
and so
incorrect.
My office used to be located at a water treatment facility, and the Water Authority actually sends notices out to all member agencies on what the blend is going into Skinner. What percentage of state project water is coming down south to us? Now, lately, I think we're up to 75% blend.
I know it's coming up.
It's pretty.
It was at 100% Colorado last year, but we were at 100% state project in 2019.
So it fluctuates constantly, and they're sending us the information telling us that.
So this is knowably, demonstrably false information. I will add that early that morning, the chair of Metropolitan sent an email to staff at LAFCO to put on the record that was used by some of the Water Authority's lackeys on the commission, one in particular, to question whether we would have to re-annex into Metropolitan as part of this process and go to the board to ask to be admitted back into Metropolitan. Now, he knows that's not true. And I'm writing a letter to him that with the sections of the MWD Act that say exactly how this process is supposed to be done, which we know and we knew going into this, and that there's no board interaction when you're already in Metropolitan. We've been in Metropolitan for 70 years this year. We're not changing anything there. There's a process within state law on if two member agencies swap some land, how you do it. And it says specifically, there's no board action as part of this. It's handled through the normal reorganization process, which is exactly what we're doing. But they're trying to throw a seed of doubt. Oh, there may be a problem with this. Oh, Met has to look at it. One commissioner, Joe McKenzie, even mentioned, oh, boy, this Met thing, we got to look at that. And it's just a stupid smokescreen from somebody who's desperate because it's demonstrably false and easily demonstrated as being that. And it's just disappointing. But it also shows the level of desperation that they're in. You know, I think when they went into this, they figured they're the 900-pound gorilla. They're going to smack around little Fallbrook and Rainbow because they've got all the money. They put $1 million up to defeat us and spend it all. I can guarantee you that. And are failing. And so after that, the Water Authority made their comments. They didn't even use their whole 30 minutes. After, I think I told you, they wanted 2 hours. They only used what, 25, 26 minutes?
Something like that.
And it's like, well, you asked for 2 hours, guys. And they went, I don't know, you have any comments about that part of it, Mig?
No.
Well,
it was pathetic.
It was pretty pathetic. And they made the same kind of weird baseless arguments. One of the things that Mark Haddam argued is that part of the detachment exit fee, we're going to get credit of roughly $40 billion for the pump stations that we've paid for but never received. And that the Water Authority admits in their documents that they will save $40 million if we detach. But he gets up there and tries to say, well, it's you can't just give them that credit because it'll be debt financed. And, you know, it isn't $40 million. And it's like, what are you talking about? There's a couple of problems that one, if you debt finance it, it's more than $40 million, you know, because last time I heard interest adds to the cost, not detract. Also in the draft agreements they had sent us before we started detachment, and just like they're doing with Valley Center and UEMA, the concept they're using for the North County pump stations is for the Water Authority to pay for them, but transfer their ownership of them to the member agency to own and operate going forward. And we had never agreed to that, but Valley Center did. You can't issue debt for assets you don't own. As you're not going to get a municipal bond for a debt for something somebody else owns. It's just not going to happen. And so it's knowably false. They know it's false, and they are deliberately misleading the commission. And you know, it's unfortunate.
They said we're going to impact the Delta.
Oh, over and over and over again, over and over and over again. The Delta. It is not true. And you know, staff has looked at this. Dr. Hanneman's he got a little more confused by the quantity of water, but he forgets that. And he didn't look at the exchange agreement and the whole thing. When the Water Authority gets the water from the Imperial Irrigation District, it's delivered to Metropolitan and given to Metropolitan in Lake Havasu. Metropolitan then chooses to either store it on the river or bring it in, depending on what they've got. Just like Robert was saying, sometimes they leave it there. And they're doing that now to help shore up the river. And they're bringing in the Northern California water. And then sometimes they're pulling it out and not getting Northern California water. Whether we're getting invoiced to Eastern or Water Authority won't make any difference in how Met operates their system, because it's the same water coming to the same treatment plant through the same connections, just invoice goes to a different place.
And we are a very small pair of water.
Well, that was another thing that Keen Simons, when he got questions on it later, he said he looked at it and he said, even if they were on 100% Colorado River water now, which we're not, as Robert indicated, and they went to 100% state project water, by some miracle, they were able to separate those molecules and get us just those. They looked at the annual variation of the flows coming through the state water project, which is a huge amount, I mean, millions of acre feet a year. And he said, we would be a very tiny fraction of the variation year to year, wet, dry year. You know, our difference would be in the noise of signal, whether it's going up and down.
As I recall, he said it's like 27% shifts.
Yeah, shifts.
Shifts, okay.
And we were
like
0.01.
Some really tiny, but
within
we're an ant.
In the real world, we're going to use the same amount of water as we did before. It's just sourcing a different part of the overall Met system.
No, it's
crazy
not even,
person.
it's not even sourcing a different part of the
It's just all,
system.
the Met is a black box and Met decides which
It's all
waters are.
inside that. It's all
We don't
inside.
control it. Water Authority doesn't control it. Eastern doesn't
The
control it.
only difference is who signs the invoice and
what
where
the
it's
stupid
coming
rates are.
from.
Yeah.
And how big is the invoice? Right?
Yeah, ask guys at Camp Pendleton why they take deliveries of their water from South Orange County to the northern part of the base, but pay Water Authority rates. They're not happy about that. So they're probably the next guys to come out. So then we took a lunch break
Was there any
and
spaghetti?
no spaghetti. I brought a sandwich. Mick had, I ran into him in the parking garage down below. Right. Because there's not that many places to eat if you got to get done fast.
Yeah.
So I just made a sandwich that morning and went out to my car and ate a sandwich. But and then afterwards they started taking public testimony. And there was a bus that came from Fallbrook. There weren't as many people I thought there would be, but I'll tell you what,
We filled the room.
we filled the room, and the speakers who did come were all, I mean, if you've been to some of our town halls, there are some folks around this region that have some distinct opinions and aren't afraid to share them. And sometimes that can cut against you if you get somebody who gets up there and starts railing about Hunter Biden or whatever. That doesn't help you. But there wasn't any of that. The people came were on point, and there was a school bus they drove down here, and they made it on time.
I think one of the biggest things that I think impressed some of the commissioners was that the California Avocado Commission showed up and spoke.
Strongly
Yeah.
support on option one. And they sent their letter finally to them on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it was clear, and even one of the commissioners who's dead set against it's a San Diego City Councilman Whitburn. He says, I appreciate, the way these guys say that, but then I don't care. There was another telling fact here is that the Water Authority has been ginning up the other member agencies, sending them form letters to mail in, telling them, here's the hearing date, here's how to get here, come speak. One other member agency came. And it was a guy who's the newest general manager in the county. And he's from Helix Water. And I talked to him. I said, Ryan, what do we do down here? And he goes, well, I'm surprised nobody else is here. I'm like, dude, everybody else can do math. And because like the city of Oceanside's letter went in and said, yeah, the detachment will impact us financially, but the current proposed rate increase of the Water Authority is 7 times the impact of detachment. If there's no exit fee, if there's an exit fee, then you got 5 years, And they all realize that this isn't the problem. One guy did, and he's trying to make a name for himself. And he said his board didn't even know he was there. Matter of fact, I'm going to talk to some of his board members next time I see him at CSDA or whatnot, and he may hear about it. And so they took all the testimony. We did another little break, but go ahead.
I got up
Oh yeah.
and thanked staff, which up until I got up, nobody had directly thanked them. Okay. On behalf of our ratepayers, because I mean, if you read the report, it was pretty balanced. It was detailed. It was, comprehensive, and they did a great job, I think,
Water Authority hates it when we say that.
yeah.
We disagree with certain elements of it, like exit fees and things like that. But
But it was the truth. So appreciated what they did.
yeah, I'm trying to think of the total speakers in the room, there was probably 20 or 25.
Yeah.
I think 1 or 2 spoke in the Water Authority side. And then they started taking people online. They had a couple of our supporters who couldn't make it, but then a whole series of union people, somebody from like the Screen Actors Union or what was it?
Yeah.
Some sort of movie production union,
Yeah.
the building trades, some other people on just what it was Mayor Gloria's union folks that said, hey, come in and read this. It was funny because one of the guys didn't know what LAFCO was. And he says, and I want to tell LAFCO to do this. And he kept saying LAFCO. And everybody calls it LAFCO if you've been dealing with it.
right.
LAFC. You clearly he's reading a script that he's never seen before, but he's getting paid as a shill, political shill to call in. And it was fun. It was, and anybody who understands this, it's like, why does a movie production union care about this?
Yeah.
One other thing that so after all the commentary was done, straightforward, Jim Desmond's the chair. And, I got to tip my cap to Jim because he's held this close to the vest. And I've talked to Jim a ton on this thing over the years. And I served with him on the Water Authority board, and you see him at these different various places. And he's always said, hey, I'm going to review everything, and he's take a look at it. But his comments started out by laying out the history of what we've been doing and what's going on. And one of the things he said
and he kind of addressed all the water authority's concerns and said, you know, I think staff's done the right thing here. A comment he said that really struck me. He says, this is like trying to get these guys to sign a prenup while they're in divorce court. Because they're trying to change the rules while we're trying
He
to
was
get out
commenting to
on the
that law they were
AB
trying to
530.
change.
And
Yeah.
and so he made a motion to do option 2, which was detachment with an exit fee, which was seconded by Barry Willis from Alpine Fire. Then they went into a break that Commissioner McKenzie called when we've been all there, and they just had a motion a second. They're getting ready to go. We're like, all right, is this going to happen? She calls a break, goes out, I guess, go to the bathroom or whatever, but it was weird. And then and comes back. We thought maybe she was tired. She was going to go home or something. She didn't. She comes back in, then walks up the hallway and starts talking to Sandy Curl, Water Authority, which I thought was a little weird. And then comes back and sits down. And then other commissioners took their turn to speak. Mayor White from Escondido is in favor of it. And he indicated the reasons why. And I spoke to him afterwards in the hallway, and he said, you know, the thing about ag, I called a bunch of ag people in Escondido, which out in San Pasqual Valley and some parts of Escondido, there's a considerable amount of avocado there too. And he talked to a bunch of growers and see what they thought. And they said, absolutely, you should let him go. Because they also realized that what the detachment impact to them is nothing compared to the normal annual rate increases. And that if somebody can try to make a buck making avocados work, then maybe somebody ought to. We also, Andy Vanderlyn was hard to hear, even for us in the room. He's a at-large commissioner, but used to be a fire chief here in Fallbrook years ago. And Andy was waffling back and forth. I think Andy will come around at some point. I mean, he's from this area. Commissioner Whitburn from the city of San Diego had this long prepared statement where he went on a little storytelling thing about this isn't a good deal. This is a good deal for, he picked all the cities that people there are. San Marcos. Is it a good deal for Escondido? Is it a good deal for East County, for each of the people that are on there to, this thing, a tale about how thousands, tens of thousands of people are behind their bills all across this county, and you want to charge them $2 a month more? Oh, you know, what about Mrs. Smith, who's on Social Security and a fixed income? If you take $2 a month more on her water bill, she's going to have to cut something else. All the while, the city of San Diego is right now going to do the Pure Water project, which LAFCO calculated will cost everybody else 4 times, all the Mrs. Smiths in our service areas, 4 times what detachment costs. The hypocrisy of these people is unbounded. And Nick Serrano did that as well. And I actually commented a tweet on KUSI's webpage, because he did an interview on Sunday, how $2 is a big deal. And I'm like, oh boy, here you go, fella. And I called him a hypocrite. I said, my friend is a hypocrite. But anyway, Joe McKenzie kind of derailed things because she started asking a bunch of questions. And I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to her questions because I got to address them with her. But it was hard to follow. She was confused about, well, if she thought that we should only get a credit for, we pay 4% at Rainbow, of that 40 million, we should only get the 4% of that credit because that's all we would pay. It's like, you don't understand. We already paid for that. This is a cost of the Water Authority. The Water Authority clearly confused her. She's confused about, well, if they debt finance it, then it's not 40 million. I'm like, people, you go buy a TV with a credit card for $500. It does not just become $28 that you're paying a month for that credit card. It's $500 plus. It's bonkers, their logic. Then she thinks that 5 years is too short. And when asked, well, how long do you think it should be? And she goes, oh, I don't know. Well, and so it was just this rambling thing. Joel Anderson stepped in at some point, and it had been a long day.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, why don't we just continue this till next meeting? And then Joe McKenzie said she can't be there in July, which they're normally dark, but they had planned a meeting in case we had to do this. And so he said, well, let's move it to August. And then that got voted on and passed. So the whole thing got continued to August. But frustrating. When they did that, I stood up and walked out of the room, out the back way. Of course, I've been there all damn day since 6 a.m. on the front steps. And I also did it for our supporters to let them know that, hey, we don't appreciate dragging us all down here and doing this. And I talked to the staff later just to say, make sure, they didn't take offense. I said, part of this was show, that I've got to show a little bit of indignation. that they did it that way. But we got a little more work to do. So
Yeah.
between now and August, we got
Yeah.
some more work to do.
Are they
So
going
the-
to give you an opportunity to rebut all of the misstatements?
So under the LAFCO processes in the law, when they close the public hearing, there's no more testimony coming. So now, obviously, we might send some letters in, things like that, but they're not going to open a new public hearing and have us go up and present to them. They're,
Yeah, that's the downside.
yeah, well, but it also doesn't allow the water authority to bring in any kind
Yeah.
of weird new math. Now,
Right.
obviously, I see Joe at meetings and at conferences and things like that, on the regular. I'm sure I'll talk to her and I'm sure I'll talk to her about this. You know, and, you know, one benefit of the delay is that everybody laid our cards on the table. So now we know whatever commissioner's not on our side, why, and we can, and almost exclusively the why is because they got confused by the water authority misinformation campaign.
Right. If you go around the table and you look at who was sitting there and what they asked, it's pretty obvious that the representative from San Diego City
Yeah.
is going to vote no on letting us go.
Right. Well, they said that last December. They
Yeah,
said-
yeah.
saying before even a
I-
proposal was.
I kept an eye when they went around to talk about these things. And then when the chairman, Desmond made the motion and there was a fast second from Barry White, I watched their
Willis,
face.
Barry
Willis,
Willis.
I'm sorry, Willis.
It's Dane White. was sitting
Yeah,
next-
Dane White, yeah. It was pretty perceptible that they went into shock.
Yeah, I don't think the water authority is expecting that.
Yeah. And if I looked at what was said by the mayor or from San Marcos or what's the other?
Christy Becker.
Christy Becker, yeah.
She's Long
Or
Beach.
Long Beach, yeah. Her questions were not on the no side. Her questions were more about what needs to be done. And what I heard her saying was, what are the things that need to be done? And I think she's more inclined to vote yes. This is my impression, based on what she was asking and saying, than to be in the no camp.
Yeah, she understands the issue. She's was on the board of one of the community choice aggregate power things where the cities,
Yeah.
booted SDG out as their wholesale power supplier so they could do that thing to get green power and all that kind of stuff. So she understands, and we've met with her, understands that we should have the choice. But the water authority, did a pretty good job of cementing nonsense into some of these people's heads. And so the fact of the matter is now that exactly which bit of nonsense is cemented in their head is on a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We'll be able to work on that and then just try to educate them as
Right.
to here's actual facts. I think that Joe McKenzie probably pissed off LAFCO staff a bit because she said, well, there's a lot of funny numbers in this report, which there aren't because, in the early days of this thing, there were. Dr. Hanneman came up with some doozies because he listened to the water authority and we had to pull him out and sit him down with a budget and say, look, here's how this works. Well, and he goes, oh yeah, you're right. A PhD in economy,
Yeah.
economist. And so at the end of the day, were the numbers exactly spot on? No. Were they in the ballpark? Yes. But they were a fraction of what the water authority was trying to tell them. They were early on, the water authority tried to tell them they were going to have a $46 million revenue loss from us a year. We don't send them $46 million total a year. And so it's like, that's more money than we send you. So how do you have this kind of revenue loss? Your net revenue loss, right? And so, it was a frustrating day, but we lived to fight another day. And I think the water authority is a lot more worried than we are at this point. I'm almost positive there's not going to be a no vote. The worst case scenario at this point, I think, is an option 3, this delay for MSR. But LAFCO General Counsel did talk about a change because the water authority is trying to change the law, AB 530, to make it where it has to be a countywide vote. It's likely they're going to want them to do a different type of thing where they establish the terms of an election now, potentially even conditionally approve it now, but just let the executive officer review the results of the MSR and decide up or down later, which is problematic because, executive officers are just one person, but with a crazy political body like this, I got to get 5 votes out of 8 to get that to do anything, just an executive officer. We just have to make sure one person gets it right.
Yeah.
That's a little easier to do. So whether that all goes through, we're going to see in August. And just so you know, even if that bill does pass, our attorneys have looked at it and LAFCO's attorneys looked at it, and she sent a memo out saying she doesn't think it would impact us because this process is essentially concluded.
Right. They've
So-
accepted the report.
Right.
So now that there's a clock running, really, they have to take action.
Yeah, and the part of the process is they did it with the elections being prescribed as they are. And you can't go just change the law and reach back in time and change it. I don't know, can you? Yeah, usually not. See, usually not. It depends. See, it depends. Usually not.
Well,
That's
well
right.
spoken.
Yeah, but so anyway,
And this isn't going to be a special meeting. This will be their August
their
7th
August 7th regular.
calendared meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So the July meeting that they put on the books, that's off then, or?
well, after I march out of the room, they decide they're gonna have it because they're gonna do a look at the AB 530, and I believe there was a report on that they tabled a couple other items off their agendas because they knew they had all this stuff coming. And so they're gonna do those then. But Joe McKenzie can't make that meeting, so. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, try to get this moved on July 7th, but the commission voted to move it to August. So
Yeah.
they've set the time, so.
Well, I like the tone that you and Jack used. It was very informative, very factual, very appreciative of LAFCO staff and time that
Yeah.
Mig mentioned that. That's important. And the tone that was used by others was very accusatorial of LAFCO and really like you could just see the finger in the chest.
Oh, yeah, when Mark Haddam gets up to
Uh,
speak, he's a litigator. He's not a smooth attorney and a negotiator working, deals. He's a litigator who, likes to that kind of stuff.
There was
And-
there was a call in by an individual that was just as good as those comments from that other individual, and I was just like, wow. It's just,
Yeah.
What are you folks thinking?
And Craig Baldwin will get the day off because they don't have to do a PowerPoint presentation. He doesn't need to be there to operate a thumb.
The dedicated clicker.
He's the clicker. I was hoping he was here because then I could talk about Craig, hey, saw Craig.
He did a great job.
And he was clicking. When they said next slide, please, he hit the button. Skill set of that guy is unbound.
August 7th is a Monday, right?
Monday, first Monday of the month, 8 a.m. downtown.
All right. Any other comments? That's quite a report.
That's a major event, but it's gone.
Yeah. Big event. And
I refrain from saying it's a watershed moment,
Oh,
but I had it on the tip of my tongue.
Well,
the recording is on YouTube, but it's like 7.5 hours
Yeah.
long. So if you have-
well, it's all downstream from here, right? Mick?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
yeah, I think
Here
it's
comes the
QED
dad.
to it.
Item 17.
And play a double tie bar.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I gotta go.
Item 17, the as needed expenditure report. As I look at this, Chad, it does not appear that any new tasks have appeared.
you are correct.
So,
It's updated with billing, but there were no new tasks issued.
all right. And all is in
And I
order.
think we're taking off some of the ones that are no longer. operative.
Yes, yeah.
So-
And as always, they're not deleted. They're just hidden so that the spreadsheet is shorter.
Exactly. So it's a little simpler to read.
Yes.
So any questions about the as needed report from anybody?
No, I'm good.
All right. The next item is 18, list of agenda items for the next scheduled engineering and operations committee, to wit. Chad has indicated to me that it may be appropriate to not have a July meeting. And Chad, why don't you just explain briefly what the logic is on that? I mean, in general, I support when we don't need to meet, that's fine. I
Yep.
mean, that's okay.
So the managers got together at the staff level, and engineering might have a couple more notices of completions, but it's all project pending. So we still don't know. Those could go to the July board meeting or the August board meeting. But those again would be consent calendars as we reviewed today. Pretty cookie cutter. The big thing that we were planning on bringing to the July meeting was an update on the groundwater project. Due to an abundance of scheduling conflicts, that has been postponed to August. So that will come before
Not just on our end, but on
the whole
consultants end as
the
well.
team's end. We could not get calendars to align. So that will come to the August E&O and August board of directors meetings for that update. Robert, Tom, and myself will also I'll be out of town. The
I
week
will
of
be
the
in
July meeting.
Samoa.
I'll be close by in Hawaii.
I got to be.
Well, yeah, that sounds like there's a whole lot of reasons not to go in July.
Or
You guys can come,
maybe
but
we
none
should
of us
have
will
the
be here.
meeting there.
Yeah.
But Tracy will be acting GM, correct?
Tracy will be-
And
yeah.
well, I'll have one of my project managers here, but you might set a new world record on the shortness of the meeting.
Is there anything else important that's going to happen in August?
You're looking at me like this, that I should be answering yes.
Well, the LAFCO meeting is going to be in August.
Yeah, that'll be August.
Right?
No, but and then we're going to have all the T's crossed and I's dotted on the groundwater study and some recommendations
At August.
on the next steps in August.
So but looking at the calendar though, then this meeting is going to happen before the next LAFCO one, so we won't have that.
Yeah.
We won't
Right.
have the luxury of an update.
Yep.
Tune into the board
Unless you
meeting
wanted to postpone the August meeting a week, but I don't know how that works.
with budget and finance
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything else.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Okay, so I think it's generally unanimously agreed here. Helene, you okay with that? Not having a July meeting?
Sure, I can't come to a meeting that doesn't happen.
Okay, so therefore we do not have any suggested agenda items for
July.
the next scheduled engineering.
Correct.
So you provide the stuff to Dawn for the August meeting. She'll circulate it. We'll
Yeah.
go from there.
We'll stack that one up.
All right, in which case we are down to item number 19. Adjournment. It is 5:03, so I say
QED.
let's adjourn this thing. QED, let's quit and eat dinner, right?
Thank you, everybody.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for coming. Thank you very much.
See you all in August.
Yes, Helene. See you in August. We're done.